There are a few
seconds from this. You know what about more of that? Another hand? I know. It feels like a curtain. In a good way. In a good way. There's one on the other side there as well. That door's locked. I figured it was. Unless you're notified. I watched the video. Oh, I know you on our phone. Good to see you. Hi there. Okay, we're just about there.
Enough people standing in the back. I hope it's back. There we go.
Just as long as he doesn't get it. That would be terrible. Okay, I think everyone has signed in. It is about 6:35. I'll call the meeting to order. We have a very short agenda tonight. This is a special meeting of the Board of Directors that was called by two board members. And it was an introduction for myself. I'm the president of the association. I'm Paul.
I'm a director. My name is Ken Palmer. I live on Buckhorn Trail.
Kim Clover, I am the secretary as well as the director at the Buckhorn Trail as well.
Great. I will verify that there is a quorum. And there are 3 points on the agenda, but really 2 board actions. The two board actions are to appoint the vacancies that are on the board, and the second one is to select a management company. The first one, I have a small rule of order that I believe that there's an issue. I don't have a problem filling the spot, but you're filling it according to section 4.6 of our rules and regs, not section 3.6, which is the appointment of the actual vacancy, and 3.6 does state that it is until the next election. And the next election is in a month from now. So
Well,
these two positions would not be for over a year, it would just be until the next election. It's until such time that there is an election, if you want to read section 3.6. The 4.6 is the replacement of an officer, or actually of a committee. So that would be like if the vice president resigned and you replace the vice president, their term as vice president would run until said vice presidency ended, which is in our case every year after the elections we re-elect officers.
So we did have a treasurer resign, so we're replacing, not appointing? Is that-
Well, no, we're appointing a member to the board, and
Correct.
then whoever we identify as the treasurer would take over the treasurer role until the next election. And then now we have two vacancies to fill. Otherwise, we wouldn't even have an election coming up in this year because nobody expired this year. So the
Not
only,
this year.
You mean this year in 2018?
meaning this year, meaning at our annual meeting, there would be nobody expiring.
You mean in 2020?
I mean the next
In
annual meeting,
19?
which is in 3 months or 4 months.
2019.
I
There is
believe-
one
I
vacancy.
believe there is one
Yes.
director
Who is-
becoming vacant. Kim.
Kim and Michelle were both elected the same year. That is in October of 19, not at the annual
No,
meeting.
not in 19, they were elected in
16,
16.
which means it's a 3-year term. So in October of 19, their term ends. So she is not up until October of 19. I'm sorry, Kim is not, never refer to somebody in the room as the pronoun. Kim is not up until October of 19.
I believe that the next annual meeting, her vacancy comes up. We can clarify that.
I have the exact date. She was a 3-year term,
And John Ramney would be in 2020.
2020, correct. And you and I are 2021. Ken, you and I are 2021. Okay.
The past practice has been at the annual meeting. I'm not going to argue it here at this meeting, but you're right, there is one more coming up next year, Kim.
Right, but there's none that would have needed to be filled this year if nobody had resigned. Nobody's term is up in January or October of 2018.
That is correct.
Okay, so
We're
the
filling-
only
we're
reason we
filling
need an
two
election
vacancies.
or an appointment is until the annual meeting when we will vote to fill those vacancies.
I think that is wrong. 3.6 says we fulfill the term, so again, we'll deal with it. We're going to fill the 2 spots now, and then when they come up, we'll have to deal with it.
Until election is what 3.6 says.
What is that?
3.6 says until election. 4.6 says till the end of the term. And 4.6 is when you're talking about the position, whether it be a vice president, president, etc. I believe we got a copy of the rules if you'd like to, if somebody has a copy with them.
My wife has
Yeah.
the board book right here.
Perfect. I've got a copy in here too. I can take
That's
it.
4.6.
4.6 is wonderful after we appoint the successors for the open positions.
Well, 4.6 says they shall serve for the remainder of the term of the officer he replaces.
Of the officer, but that
I'm
is,
sorry, sir?
So 4.6 is only applicable to the officers.
it's only applicable to the officers and it's only for the office that they hold. The offices, we re-elect officers every election. Officers don't stay the same. So
Correct.
once 3.6 is where we talk about the appointment of the board members. So any appointment this evening is until the annual meeting, and that's when we would need to elect or name whoever wins the election for those 2 open board seats. Okay, so I just want to make sure that we're clear on the terms if we can.
I'm not clear, but I'll...
Well, if you want to read 3.6, take a second. We have time.
I have 3.6 right here.
Okay,
Yeah, I have 3.6 here.
I'm sorry, can I?
sure, please.
Sorry. My name is Chris. When is the next annual meeting or election? Like, do we have any definitive?
We have not set that date
We
yet.
have not set a date. It'll be next year, obviously, presumably in the spring, but it could go all the way till the fall, because the last one was in October.
Okay, because the only reason I ask is because reading through some of the bylaws, it says.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Chris, can we please listen to the speaking? Thank you, Chris, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just asking because reading through some of the bylaws and some of the next door apps and some of that stuff, it indicates that the annual meeting kind of is the election, when the elections, the nominations and everything takes center stage. So the annual meeting, I would think it'd be like a set date. I didn't see anything in any bylaws that would indicate that, but for such an important turn and resurrection of the community, I would think that we would have that kind of in place. So I think that's an important thing if we can establish when the annual meeting is to get everything, because it seems like a lot of things kind of revolve around that quote, that in the bylaws especially. So
We are in the process, though, of getting a new management company, and then we're able to establish dates and.
Normally
send
when
that out
the-
to the residents.
I
When was
apologize.
the last annual meeting? The annual meeting's yearly, right? When was the last one?
January.
It was in January.
So when the next one be January?
Well, it's going to be, we have to get the management company on board first. Chris, to answer your question, normally what had occurred in the past
Okay.
is when the budgets went out, nomination forms went out as well, if anyone wanted to nominate whomever or nominate themselves to run for the board. Those were sent back in, they were sent out as a ballot, and then they were announced at the annual meeting. So it all revolves around the management company sending out the budget, sending out the nominations, taking the nominations, sending out a ballot, and then getting an election. So that will all occur as soon as we identify a management company that will take over for AAM. For those of you who were not at the last meeting, AAM announced shortly after the last meeting that they were resigning as our management company, and they gave us until December 31st to represent us.
Wait a second here, Paul.
Yeah.
Let's clarify that
Yeah.
though, too. This whole community was in a dispute with AAM, correct? Is that not correct?
There was no written formal dispute.
Okay, you weren't at any of the meetings.
No, I was at the meeting.
Okay, thank you. So, they are not gonna handle any of the elections, correct? It'll be a new
Yeah, it's
management
not
company.
handling elections, no.
No.
Right, so I think the most important thing tonight is to make sure, one, we get the new board members on, we figure out who our new management company is gonna be, because there's funds that have to be, make sure they come our way, that are hanging like $100,000 for a piece of property that's worth $500.
And do you,
So,
you do
another thing
know
I'd
why
like
it's
to
worth
see-
$500?
Well, I'd
right?
like to know, I want to know if you're gonna resign to that also.
I'm not
I'd
going
like
to.
see a motion for
I
that.
am not going to, but thank you for your concern. And you do know why it's worth $500, right?
I don't care why it's worth
Okay.
$500, I'd like
I
to know
didn't
why.
think so. Okay, anyway, we have an agenda with 3 items, and according to Robert's Rules of Order, unless you're recognized, please.
You haven't used Robert's Rule of Order last 2 meetings.
Well, we did this one. Thank you, sir. Okay, so we have number 4. The first one is the appointment of the vacancy for John Ramey.
I would like to say something before we start. This meeting is a special meeting of the Board of Directors. Technically, the only subjects that we can deal with today are the items on the agenda. The discussion we've already had is technically outside of the authority of this meeting. Okay, we're going to move through the items. We'll ask people to have a comment, kind of put up your hand, let us know how many people are interested. We'll kind of pick on President, we'll pick on you one at a time. Please keep your comments short and hopefully respectful, and we'll kind of move along. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, for the appointment of the vacancy of John Ramey, and again, I'm presuming, unless you have people that you're already received any notice from, we can open it to the floor.
No, it's only the board can nominate people to this position.
Okay?
I would like to make a motion to nominate Damon Darachek, and I'd be happy to give an explanation.
I'm sorry, who?
Damon
Damon
Darachek?
Yep. Is Damon present this evening?
Yeah.
Damon, please.
I will second the motion The board now has to have a discussion, then we open it up to the audience. Any discussion?
No discussion, not on my part. I know Damon, his recommendation, or I'm sorry, his qualifications based on the last election.
Correct.
So I have no issues with that. However, I would like to at least see, I had several other people that I felt were also at least qualified candidates that I'd like to,
Well, we need to,
let's get all the candidates and then we can say, those who want X, those who want Y,
Well,
those who want Z.
technically, there's one motion before the board.
Okay.
If you wanted to nominate someone, you should have started first, because if, after this motion, we have a vote, then we don't have that.
I'll tell you what, let's just get Damon on the board.
And
Let's
then we'll
go.
go to the next one. Sounds good. Would you like to speak, Damon?
Yeah, I'd like to speak. Last election, I put in to be on the ballot. For whatever reason, I didn't get on the ballot. There was an email snafu, whatever it was. It doesn't matter anymore. So I had to go door to door, which I didn't mind. I got to meet a lot of neighbors. I got to listen to a lot of different issues that people were having. I know a few neighbors that have had some terrible times here in the last year. So I lost by 4 votes. That's going door to door, asking for people's votes, writing basically. So I kind of felt that when Mr. Ramey resigned, that maybe I could have stepped in and just filled those shoes. I wrote to the management company. She said that's going to be up to the board. She forwarded my email to the management company and I never heard anything after that. So the only agenda I have here is to get this community to come together. And that's it. I'm a firefighter. I've been one for 17 years. I serve the community of Surprise, Arizona. I know what it's like to help people out. I know what it's like to see communities come together, and I've seen communities come apart, and ours is definitely falling apart. It really is. So that's one reason why I want to be on the board. That's the main reason. So, thank you.
Damon, I wholeheartedly agree with you and I understand your thought process of being appointed. However, you understand that it does take a board. If you read the rules and regs, it's not the next person with the next number of votes. So I apologize if that was ever communicated to you or if it was not communicated to you in the process. But there is a motion and there's a second and I'm an aye. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Okay. Damon, welcome to the board.
Thank you.
Did we open for comments?
Okay.
Can you go up there?
I wish you would, please. Here's Joe.
Way to go, David!
Bring your own chair.
Okay, since I want to make sure I don't miss my opportunity here, I'd like to take the opportunity to, there's been a lot of chatter going on in the neighborhood, both on the board, not on the board. When I say the board, I'm referring to next door. And there's been several voices of reason and several voices of sanity. And I would like to personally nominate Chris to fulfill the role until the election because of his saged advice on the budget process, going through the finances, his process for going through the management company selection, which, again, I go back to, which if you've been reading it all, if we had given our management company 30 days notice at the last meeting, we'd be in big trouble today. So I think that there was a nice process. I think that there was a nice process outlined, and I'd like to recommend Chris. Second? Chris, you want to stand up and?
Hi, I'm Chris Robertson. I'm an IT director for Honeywell, and my only thing I was trying to do on next door was talk about transitions. So one of the things I do for my company is work on transitions. I do multi-million-dollar transitions. Last one was a $100 million proposing next door, if I help out in that process, my hope just would be to grab an accountant and some other folks to join us in that process. So I don't want to do it by myself. It's not a one-man show.
Is there any other board discussion before we open it?
There was no second to your motion.
I know there wasn't.
Okay. So I have that discussion.
I like this. I talked to Chris the other day just because I saw his posting on Nextdoor. I thought he brought some really good ideas, especially when we kind of talked about better communication with the community. I don't know if anybody knows about SurveyMonkey. Anybody ever heard of that? We use that in our department with our union to get some business running and going. I thought that was an excellent idea. Is that we really need communication. Everybody, but it takes everybody though. If not, I mean, there's 50 people here this time. There's 40 or 50 at the last meeting.
Yep.
Before that, I'd show up and there would be 3 people. So, you know, what's happened, you know, whether it's from things being posted on doors or whatever, it brought all of the people in there. So,
I think somebody should second that.
Well, there is a motion for Chris, but nobody has seconded it yet, so. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Since the board has no more discussion, anybody in our attendance that would like to offer any comments?
I have a comment. Are you going to open it up to anybody else that's in the audience to possibly be on the board? Or
No, this is a board meeting to appoint the next members. This is only to fill open positions.
Correct.
There will be an election. It is not open to the members. No.
Okay, so you guys, just so that I understand, so you guys basically just are deciding these 2 gentlemen are the ones that you want on the board and you're making the nomination?
That is correct.
Okay, I didn't understand.
No, that's absolutely correct.
And the nomination forms, as I mentioned before, will be going out, and then you can run for these open seats.
I have no interest. I was
Oh,
just
no,
curious.
anybody. I meant you
It's open
in
to all
general.
members.
Okay.
Anybody who wants to run can run. Chris, yes.
So it sounded like everybody was on Damon, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So we all heard what Damon had to say. We all heard what Chris had to say. Now everybody voted unanimously for Damon. I noticed that Ken
Yes.
appointed or nominated. Excuse me. Is there a reason?
No, I didn't.
No.
Oh,
Kim,
I'm sorry.
Kim.
I did.
He seconded.
Okay. Is there any reason why you don't, either one of you 2 don't second the nomination for Chris?
Personal? I don't have to.
No, that you don't.
No,
but
I
if
just choose not to.
If it's a personal reason, isn't it?
No, not
you need to
personal
be
against
hired?
anyone, a personal to me. I have a choice to make a second or not, and I make a decision to not.
Is there any background with that or any information that?
No.
I mean, it sounds like he's pretty well equipped to handle it.
I only met him 20 minutes ago.
Yeah. Paul, how long have you known Damon?
A couple meetings and maybe a few
A
minutes.
year.
I have not known him a year.
Well,
I don't know him.
how long have you known Chris?
Okay, I don't want to start a feud. I just don't. It seems to me like you guys
Okay.
are just at an impasse.
This is
and-
totally irrelevant. You're supposed to speak for or against. That's the only thing you can do with this
And that's
meeting.
what I asked, sir. Is what do you have against?
You're asking me why I voted against him.
Exactly.
No, that is not appropriate for this meeting. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Sir, I'm sorry, all the way back, you raised your.
I'm John. I've been on the Nashville with him a couple times. And Chris seems to be a voice of reason. Otherwise, pretty tumultuous pond. You seem to have some ideas, and I support being a board member.
I think there's probably a number of people in this room that would support him. I didn't say I wouldn't support him.
I'm not suggesting the otherwise.
Okay.
I'm just saying, you have to give up my opinion, was.
No? Okay. So.
Any other homeowner comments? Thank you, John.
Can I say, I have
Yeah,
an
please.
opinion, just, based like how you guys are wanting to know some background. I've had some background with Paul myself, and it hasn't been good at all. So for him to appoint somebody, I would be a little concerned.
Not appoint, announce, or just, I'm sorry, nominate.
Well,
Yeah.
I'd say it too.
Please.
If we're gonna be open about this, Chris is on the ad committee. Okay, so the
Yeah.
interaction we're having here, it's not like he just met Paul and is talking to Paul the first time. He was on the ad committee, he's been on the ad committee for a few years. So I don't know what this is going on right here, but let's just be upfront about what's happening here.
What he's saying is
People
the
that don't know.
architectural review committee, okay? That's what he was talking about.
Right.
Right.
I'm sorry, I thought I saw another hand. Yes.
Hi, my name is Bill Daly. I'm new to the community, and we're happy to be here. What I'm hearing is Chris has some fresh ideas, and Damon has obviously shown this community support for a long time. I spent 10 years as a software engineer for Honeywell, and the last 25 as a firefighter. I get it. It seems like what we need is some healing, and so I like what I'm hearing, and I'm hoping this is
Any other? Oh, please.
Chris, you're acting like you don't know this Chris, and I know you do. You have barbecues, you get
Oh, absolutely, I
together.
know.
But you just said, oh, and your name is Chris, like you don't know. So everybody here should know you're friends with him and have known him for years.
That wasn't mine.
I've never met Chris, and he sounds more.
I'm not saying he's not a good guy.
Okay, I'm sorry,
I just
please,
wanted
let's
this
just
Chris to
one
know
speak at a time.
These Chris's know each other.
That
So.
wasn't my intent.
Okay, well, that's the way it sounded. You said it to people who don't know. You made it sound like you don't know him.
Is there any reason, Lisa, that you would not
Chris?
nominate Chris for the?
I'm not saying he's not a good guy and I'm going to nominate him. I was just pointing out that you acted as though, oh, your name is Damon and oh, your name is Chris, like you didn't know them.
I've never
But-
met Damon, and
but you
I'm
do
not
know
good at
Chris.
public speaking, so sometimes I kind of lose track of things, but,
I wasn't criticizing your
again,
speaking.
I'm sorry, I'm not good at that now, but
I just don't want anybody to be uncertain about who's who here.
But nobody, other than the four of us, will be
I do know
voting.
Chris
so.
very well, but I can't.
Stop
It
it.
doesn't matter.
It's irrelevant.
Thank
It was motion, it was second, now they take a vote.
Absolutely.
Well, actually, we do open it up for homeowners' comments, but thank you.
Yeah, they're just arguing
Yeah.
between each other.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, we had one more comment, I believe? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Anybody else before we, there's a motion, there's a second. All those in favor of Chris? Aye?
Aye.
No.
No,
Okay,
that's what happens now.
next nomination? Or, I'm sorry, yes, you have somebody you want to appoint?
Yes, I want to make a nomination to appoint Brent Velhausen as the next board member.
I'm Brett Belhusen. I've been in the community of Cibola Vista for 2 years now, and I've had nothing but problems with AAM and with some of the board members. They're the key players in this community, whether it's them approving the buildings and lights and all the different things they want to approve for themselves, driveways, and not being fair to the rest of the neighborhood, like having driveways that they can park on and not allowing other neighbors to park on, being discriminated against, and I'm here to stop that, and that's what I want. I want everybody to be treated fairly in this neighborhood. I want everybody to have the same rights in this neighborhood and to not be discriminated against as I have in my family since I live in this community. And I'm willing to serve and make sure that that doesn't happen to anybody else here in this neighborhood.
Are you willing to work with the rest of the board?
I am willing to work with the rest of the board, yes. So, and I mean, us being a community, the way that we are here near the lake, you got some individuals, they can have boats, other neighbors can't have boats, you got neighbors that can have a trailer, other neighbors that can't, and they get fined, and your neighbor across the street can do it, but you can't. That's been going on here for a long time, and there's people behind it, people on the art committee, people of the board members that are working together against everybody in this neighborhood.
Are those the ways you've been discriminated against?
Yes, I have been discriminated against